What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian from House of Wrestling, and this is my review for New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 17, January 4th. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, where do I begin with this pay-per-view? Man, first off, it was long. The pre-show, I believe it started, if I remember correctly, bear with me. I've been up for a while as I'm recording this. So I believe the pre-show started around 12:30 a.m. Central Standard Time in the States. And the pay-per-view did not finish till around, I want to say 6:50. So it was a long pay-per-view. But man, it was worth it to stay up and watch this. This was a very fun show. I can say from the first match till right before the last two matches, like this pay-per-view went by quickly. Even though it was long. What is it, 12 to 6:50? Is almost 5 hours almost. But nonetheless, man, this was fun. I know I wasn't the only one that stayed up and watched this pay-per-view here in the States. So many people were on Twitter and social media commenting, rebuttals, all that stuff, just having fun watching it. This only happens once a year as far as Wrestle Kingdom, so it's New Japan Pro Wrestling's WrestleMania, so here we're gonna stay up and watch this. But man, was it worth it, because we did get some answers to Sasha Banks, and she is no longer called that. She is going by the name of Mercedes Moné, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So before I get into this show, I'm going to give you guys the results like I always do. So here we go. The first match, you had Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojomi, bear with me, forgive me if I hack up these names, Togi Makabe versus Tatsumi Fujinami, Minoru Suzuki, and Tiger Mask. Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojima, and Togi Makabe defeated Tatsumi Fujinami, Minoru Suzuki, Tiger Mask. Then you had you could say the first match, but the second match of the pay-per-view, you had TJP and Francisco Akira defeat Leo Rush and Yao. That was a really good match. Then you had Kerry defeat Tam Nakano for the IWGP Women's Championship. Then you had Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi defeat FTR for the IWGP World Tag Team titles. After that, you had Zack Sabre Jr. defeat Ren Narita to become the inaugural IWGP Television Champion. Then you had Tama Tonga defeat Carl Anderson to become the Never Openweight Champion. There was a lot of title changes on this pay-per-view. Then you had Shota Umino, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and KJ Moto, the Great Muta, defeat Sanada, Bushi, and Tetsuya Naito. This was the final match for the Great Muta at the Tokyo Dome and for New Japan Pro Wrestling. After that match, you had Taiji Ishimori, Hiromi Takahashi, El Desperado, and Master Wu. Hiromi Takahashi wins that match. And after that, you had, man, what an epic match, man. You're probably going to see this all over social media, but it's up there, man. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Championship match. Arguably, right now, is match of the year. And there are going to be wrestlers throughout this year that are going to have to, top what they did in this match. Because this was an insane, brutal match. try to find a way to watch this match, go on New Japan Pro World, watch this match, because, man, this was a classic. So you had Kenny Omega defeat Will Ospreay to become the new IWGP United States World Champion. Then in the main event, you had Kazuchika Okada defeat Jay White for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So yes, that was the results. Yes, that was a lot of results. Like I said, there was a lot of title changes. But, man, this was, like I said, this show flew. Starting off with the Tatsumi Fujinami, Minoru Suzuki, Tiger Mask match against Yuji Nagata, Satoshi Kojima, and Togi Makabe. I mean, this was, you could say this pay-per-view was more so about just strikes, counters, strong style. And this isn't a bad thing. It was just a variety of those elements throughout this whole pay-per-view, which, man, this was a very entertaining show. There were moments where, as I was watching it, and I'm used to watching New Japan Pro Wrestling and the style and everything, it did feel like it just flew by really quickly, and maybe it was just me anticipating, those matches that were just grinded out. Maybe I was anticipating Wrestle Kingdom similar to the one in 2021, but this was totally different. You can tell that Calvin Kelly, and forgive me, I can't remember the other announcer's name, like, they were really excited to be there, and it's like, hey, things have opened up. We got all these people here. You got a WWE wrestler, you got an AEW wrestler, you got, of course, Mercedes Moné debuting. You have all these elements, and FTR, they're there. So it's just like, all right, this is a really cool Wrestle Kingdom. It did feel like throughout the show, and once we got to the main event, and we got to Okada defeating Jay White, it did feel like there was a new beginning for New Japan after this Wrestle Kingdom. Like, it's something different, and it didn't feel like, of course, in past years since 2013, it's been all Bullet Club. It did kind of feel like they might be moving on from the Bullet Club. I may be wrong, but you had most of those members lose. So, that's something that's stuck in my head. It's like, man, is the Bullet Club going to disband after this? Because it's, the leader lost. You had Ishimori, he lost. You had Carl Anderson, he dropped the title, which, of course, he's going back to WWE to, be with the LC. So it's like, man, we're seeing a change of the guard. It's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But yeah, the first match, it was cool to see Tatsumi Fujinami and Tiger Mask. I remember seeing Tatsumi Fujinami versus Ric Flair in 1991 at Super Brawl, and he was a shooter. He was a shooter back in the day, and it was really cool to see these guys. And of course, a lot of these guys that were on Wrestle Kingdom, it was, of course, to honor the late great Antonio Inoki. He a legend and a pioneer in pro wrestling, especially in Japanese wrestling. And it was so cool for them to just come out and see them there, even though it was just really quick and things like that. But it was really cool. And I know some people, oh, well, why do they, like, no, it's paying tribute to their culture and everything. And I think that's one thing that you could see throughout this show that you could appreciate is the Japanese culture throughout this Wrestle Kingdom. And it was, I know I'm jumping around, forgive me, guys, I've been up for 5 hours, so bear with me. But it was really cool to experience this pay-per-view, of course, just being something different. And of course, the past few months, it's been, WWE, AEW, and that whole thing, and then a little bit of New Japan. But this was New Japan's, WrestleMania for them to show out, and they did a fantastic job. The entrances, I gotta say, throughout this whole Wrestle Kingdom were, if the highest was a 10, this was a 20. because these entrances were very elaborate. You can get into the pageantry, tongue twisting, of and the spectacle of the entrances. They were just very fabulous. But moving on, the match between Lio Rush and Yao versus TJP and Francisco Akira. Man, this was, mind you, this was the one that started off the pay-per-view, and man, this was a fast-paced match. These guys were going 100 miles an hour. Lio Rush, not even 5 minutes into the match, he was busted open. That's something that was happening very frequently throughout this pay-per-view, that just people just blood. Like, man, it was very physical. Like, this is a gritty match or event. But man, it was fast-paced. TJP, like, man, the creativity that these guys did, not only in this match, but throughout this event. And shout out to even Kerry and Tam Nakano. Just the creativity with the counters. And if you want to call them false finishes or what have you, I don't care. They were entertaining because it just felt like, especially in this match, oh man, the match is going to end. It's like, oh man, they kick out. And like, you wouldn't expect a person to kick out, and they kicked out in just a way, like, there was a very, very good fluidity throughout this show, throughout these matches, where it was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win, but man, this is going to be good. And that's something that you could tell throughout every match on this card. You didn't know who was going to win, except for the Great Muta match. You kind of knew, like, they're not going to let the Great Muta lose on Wrestle Kingdom with his final match for New Japan. Like, they were not going to. That's the one exception. But everything else, you really didn't know who was going to win until the last 30 seconds. And, man, it was very entertaining. So, yeah, the Lio Rush U match versus TJP and Francisco Akira, that was freaking fantastic. The Spanish Fly that Lio Rush executed, man, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And, of course, in the end, TJP wins with an inside cradle, which I wasn't anticipating that, because by that time, they've had at least, man, maybe 4 to 5, and forgive me, guys, 4 to 5 false finishes. So it was just like, and I was like, nah, this match is not in this way. And it's like, oh crap, it did in this way. Oh man. So, I mean, TJP and Francisco Akira, man, those guys that is a great tag team. Whenever you see them on New Japan Strong, tune in, because you will be entertained. The next match, like I said, you have Kerry versus Tam Nakano. And when this match, someone on Twitter mentioned, like, yeah, this is going to be early on in the show. And I was like, really? That's interesting. Because, of course, we're anticipating Sasha Banks and everything. But, man, this was a very hard-hitting match. A lot of forearm strikes. The strong style and the Joshi style was prevalent in this match and throughout all the matches. There was a nice, violent screwdriver by Tam. Man, that was a sweet move. Then there was a spinning forearm by Kerry. She wins with an elbow drop. 1, 2, 3. She wins. And she gets the belt and she's holding it up. Lights go out. And it's like, uh-oh. Here we go. We've been waiting for this for a couple weeks now. Since Christmas. Like, all right, who is it? And the video package was really cool, because it was similar to how Chris Jericho debuted in New Japan, where it was just lights went out. Okay, you see the feet. You see, it's kind of really cool way to present someone, where you see the feet, the legs, then you see the arms, the torso, and then you see the whole face, and it's like, oh my God. And lo and behold, it is Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks. I got to get used to that. I'm so used to calling her Sasha Banks. She's not Sasha Banks anymore. She is Mercedes Moné. She came out with, man, that was a very, very cool entrance. She had the Japanese garment, colored hair, and everything. Just something totally different. It was like, oh, okay, this, all right, I can get behind this. She comes in the ring. Um, she kind of teases. It looked like she teased, but then Kari was on the floor, so it was like maybe she hit her. Like it was like, oh, okay. Um, so she grabs the belt and she says, I'm the blueprint. New Japan and New Japan or Stardom. I'm the CEO of the women's division, and she issues a challenge at Battle at the Valley, February 18th. Mercedes Moné versus Carrie. Oh boy, those tickets are going to sell out. Wow. Um, I was more anticipating this match being this month, but the smart move to do that. I did notice. Shout out to Stephanie Chase on Twitter. She posted a side by side. So after Sasha Banks debuted, she holds up the belt and everything, and just going, and it's still going. Like people are still tweeting about it and posting pictures and everything. Which, if you're on Twitter and you're posting gifs and stuff like that, and videos, and New Japan's gonna take it down pretty much, and other places. But New Japan posted a picture, with Mercedes Moné with the New Japan logo, but in the background, there's red and blue strobe lighting in the back. And if you look at the new Dynamite graphics, it's red and blue strobe lighting. So it begs me to question, did New Japan subtly hint that Mercedes Moné will be on AEW Dynamite January 11th? Or, I don't want to say or, but on top of that, will they give a subtle tease later on tonight? Mind you, as I'm recording this is Wednesday morning after Wrestle Kingdom. So if you're watching this later on, like, yes, this is before Dynamite. Did they subtly tease that AEW is going to do a major tease for Dynamite leading to or going into the January 11th Dynamite from the Kia Forum in Los Angeles? Of course, the match that's been heavily speculated that Mercedes Moné will be in is the Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter versus Saraya and her mystery partner. So yeah, did they subtly tease that? Like, you look at the graphics and you look at, it's like, okay. But nonetheless, man, this was really cool to see Mercedes Moné in Wrestle Kingdom in New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is gonna be fun to see how this goes. Of course, we've had a similar situation with Jon Moxley when he left WWE, and when he was Dean Ambrose and he came out to Jon Moxley. He did that whole thing. I'm trying to think of who else. You could say Cody, but more so ever since AEW has come about, that you had Jon Moxley. Now you got Mercedes. I'm trying to think of who else I'm forgetting. Oh, Bryan Danielson is another one. Man, who else? I know I'm missing someone else, but this is going to be fun to see how this plays out, where she goes, and how she's utilized. And of course, it's going to be different. This isn't going to be WWE. This is New Japan and whatever other promotion she goes to, and of course AEW. So just got to wait and see and how this plays out. But I am going to be looking forward to that match. Man, I got to get used to not calling her Sasha. I was just going to call her Sasha Banks. Mercedes Moné take on Carrie at Battle of the Valley, February 28th. So let's see what happens. So the next match, you had Yoshihashi versus and Hiroki Goto versus FTR. This was a really quick match, but It was a quick match, yet at the same time, it was hard hitting, physical. Like, they really just got to the point. Like, we're not gonna over dramatize everything. And I believe that was the right thing to do if you're gonna have Osprey and Omega, Okada and Jay White at the end of the pay per view or be the main event of the pay per view. Why would you have other matches earlier in the card have you know elongated, be dramatic, and it kind of takes away from the main event. Man, what the? There we go. So yeah, it's really, you think about it, it's like, what, that makes sense why they wouldn't have all these matches before Osprey and Omega and Okada and Jay White, have this dramatization. Ugh, man, I'm telling you, I need to get some sleep. You know, makes sense. So, but man, this was a hard hitting match. There was a nice dragon suplex and bridge. What's crazy is FTR executed the big rig and Goto and Hashi kicked out. Then there was a suplex on the outside by Cash, which, man, that was nasty. Then there was a spike pile driver, and then Goto got a kind of like an inverted driver slam. Got the pin, 1, 2, 3. FTR loses. They have no more title belts. This is going to be interesting because now this goes into the AEW storylines as far as what's going to happen with FTR. Their contracts are coming up around April. Are they going to go back to WWE? Are they going to stay in AEW? Are they going to stay and be joined by CM Punk? What's going to happen with FTR? I believe that's the biggest thing to come out of this match. Of course, shout out to Goto and Hashi for winning the tag team titles. That was a pretty dope match. So, yeah, with FTR, it's like, man, where is this going to go? How is this going to play out on AEW television? They have no titles. They walked around for a third of the year in 2022 with the AAA titles, the IWGP titles, the ROH titles. I'm trying to think of what other title that they have that they lost. What other title do they have? Anyway, so that's going to be interesting. After the match, FTR shook hands with Goto and Hashi. Then after that, you had Zack Sabre Jr. versus Ren Narita. Man, Zack Sabre Jr., man. That guy, I had the privilege of watching him in person, live. That guy can go, man. That guy is a pleasure to watch in a wrestling match. And, man, a lot of technical wrestling in this match. You could say a form of chain wrestling in this match. There was a lot of, there were some hard hitting kick strikes, man. Man, like I was surprised that they weren't coughing. Like if you had a chest cold and you got kicked by Zack Sabre Jr. or Ren Narita, you would not have had a cold after they kicked you because, man, they were kicking hard. Then you had elements of strong style in here. You had the kick exchange by both men. Then in the end, you had Zack Sabre Jr. hit a submission hold. He wins. He becomes the inaugural IWGP television champion. And then after the match, this is where things get interesting. You have TMDK come out and they toss a shirt at Zack Sabre Jr. And he looks at it and he kind of like teases that he's going to throw it away, but he doesn't. And puts it on, so he's a part of a new faction, TMDK. So that's going to be interesting for New Japan. I don't recall in New Japan seeing Zack Sabre Jr. in a faction outright, similar to Will Ospreay with the United Kingdom, of course, Jay White with the Bullet Club. I haven't seen him like that. So that's going to be really interesting. The t-shirts look pretty cool. So yeah, he's with TMDK, and see where that goes. Then we get to Tama Tonga versus Carl Anderson. I had a feeling Tama Tonga was going to win this match, and I was right. He won. I enjoyed this match. You could tell Tama Tonga was fired up for this match, had a lot of energy, enthusiasm in this match. Carl Anderson, man, he played the heel in this match, man. Right off the bat, he hits Tama Tonga with the belt. Mind you, he was wrestling with the OC t-shirt, which was like, that's pretty cool. I know some people are going to read in that, it's like, no, like, he's there to do a job. He's there to drop the belt. Like, hello. Like, WWE's allowing him to drop the belt. Like, what, New Japan? No, we don't want your shirt. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. But man, after you hit Tama Tonga with the belt later on, you had he suplexed him onto the barricade. Or actually, yeah, he suplexed him. Then he did a driver on the stage. Like, there was a lot of stuff that happened on that stage, and it was like, And when this match started off, and when Carl Anderson really got a lot of offense in, right away I'm just like, yeah, I think he's dropping that title. Like, Tama Tonga is going to be the new IWGP Never Openweight champion. So it was like, I kind of see what you're doing. But man, you had after that, Tama Tonga, like, he was cutting ahead. Like I said before, you had Leo Rush, he was busted open. Later on, you had Ospreay, he was busted open. So it was just a bunch of people that were like just busted open. Then from there, you had Carl Anderson get some offense in. Tama, he got some offense in. Then you had Tama Tonga do a frog splash, which led Carl Anderson kicked out. Then you had this nice, cool exchange of Carl Anderson attempting to do the stun gun, and Tama Tonga prevented it. Then Carl Anderson attempted, and it was like vice versa. They were countering it, and just the way they countered was really cool. Like, it looked like they hit it, but then whether it was Tama Tonga or Jay White, they stopped it. It was like, man, that's pretty cool. That is really cool. So you had that. Then towards the end of the match, you had Tama Tonga legit stop a stun gun. Man, they were running the ropes and everything, and then he countered a body slam into a stun gun. 1, 2, 3. Tama Tonga is the new IWGP Never Openweight champion. Long overdue. This should be fun. And kind of predict this. I would not be surprised if he becomes IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, whether this year or next year. But I do see him being in the heavyweight title scene real soon in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And for what I've read, I don't think we're probably going to see Carl Anderson back in New Japan maybe until his contract's up. That's going to be a while. Like, I don't think we're going to see him in New Japan. I don't think there's any dates or rematches or anything like that. I think it was just more him dropping the title and then moving on. Then we get Shota Umo, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Keiji Moto versus Sanada, Bushi, and Tetsuya Naito. This match, now the Tama Tonga Carl Anderson match went on for a pretty lengthy time, but this match, this felt like a really quick match. Like I said, this was the final match for the Great Muta for New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe for the Tokyo Dome, so bear with me. But man, there was a nice Sanada moonsault pin that he almost got through, but he kicked out. Then Tanahashi prevented Great Muta from doing a moonsault. That was the highlight for this match for me, because Great Muta, if you know him and his work, like, he's known for doing the moonsault. Like, he was one of the first guys in America to do the moonsault on national TV, where it's like, yo, whoa, this is different. I mean, he revolutionized it. So when he got on the top rope and Tanahashi's like, no, 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 and it's like, oh man, it's like, man, it stinks. But in the end, Shota Umo, he gets the pin. KJ Muto and his team win. So it would have been cool if Great Muta would have gotten the pin, but it is what it is. It was a nice moment for the Great Muta. Man, he's got some great moments. He had Nakamura. He had this. Of course, later on in the month, he's going to have believe a trios match with Sting and Darby Allin. So that should be really fun. Then from there, we get the 4-way between Ishimori. Okay, man. His first name is really difficult for me to pronounce, but I'll attempt to. Tahiji, or Taji. There you go, Taji. Ishimori, Hiromu Takahashi, El Desperado, and Master Wato. This was a fun match. This was similar to the Leo Rush tag team match against TJP and Francisco Akira. Like, this had a similar feel, except it wasn't a tag team match. It was just a 4-way, and they were just, man, this was fast paced. There's a bunch of near countouts. What was cool about this match was that there was always some form of double submissions, and it was always different combination of wrestlers. It was like, man, it's really cool. Like, it was a fun match. You can tell they really amped it up because they knew that they were going on before Omega and Ospreay, kind of like getting the crowd revved up for, hey, after this you got Okada and Omega, then you got Ospreay and not Ospreay. You had Kenny Omega and Ospreay, and then after that you had Okada and Jay White. Man, this was a fun match, man. The time bomb kickout was freaking amazing. When Ishimori hit Wato with the chair, which you thought that was going to be in, it wasn't. Then you had Wato slam and Takahashi break the pin. Then you had Takahashi do a counter. He did a counter that led to a driver type move and the pin, so he wins, and he becomes the the junior heavyweight champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling, which long overdue. This should be fun. Always love this work. So you have that. Then we get to Omega and Ospreay. Man, oh man. That, like I said earlier in this review, you are going to want to find this match, watch this match, throughout this whole match. Mind you, this was 4 years since Kenny Omega last wrestled in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The entrances, man, epic. I gotta say, watching those entrances, like it was escapism. It took your mind, like you really suspension of disbelief. Like, oh man, this is really, like, you're seeing this spectacle that isn't overproduced. It's just a spectacle. It's like, okay, these guys they're the top. Like, this is gonna be fun. But man, this Kenny Omega, like, he had Don Callis at ringside, and Will Ospreay had the United Empire at ringside. But throughout this whole match, it did not feel like I was watching. And mind you, I'm saying this for myself. Maybe you comment below what you guys felt. But it just felt like watching Kenny Omega. This wasn't Kenny Omega from AEW. This was Kenny Omega from New Japan Pro Wrestling that led to what AEW has become, if that makes sense. The stuff that he did in this match, I have not seen him do in AEW. Maybe he's holding it back or what have you, but I have not seen him do this. And throughout this whole match, I kept thinking, I'm like, man, this dude's gotta like wrestle next week in a ladder match with the Young Bucks against Death Triangle. Like, is this dude gonna be walking? Like, I don't mean that in a bad way or negative way, but it was just the stuff that he and Ospreay did in this match. Man, whether it's painkillers, aspirin, ice baths, like, you're gonna have to do something to. Man, this was a very physical match, a physical, gritty match with a lot of aggression. The thing that sticks out from this match, the one moment, is Kenny Omega doing a DDT on the top rope on an exposed turnbuckle. How he did that move, the way it looked, and the result, you could not have done it any other way that resulted in what the hell did I just see? Like, you couldn't have done it anyway. And thank goodness Ospreay isn't hurt or anything, because the way it looked like he landed was just like, ooh, oh man, that was a nasty moment, and that led to Will Ospreay being busted open. But man, like I said, just like the Carl Anderson match, what was the other match? Yeah, the Leo Rush match, you could say FTR to some extent, but more like the Zack Sabre Jr. Like, this match, the Omega Ospreay match, man, the counters that they, like, maybe this makes sense, but if you saw this match, you guys can relate to what I'm about to say. There were counters to counters and reversals to reversals that led to, like, near pinfalls and kickouts that resulted in the counter. Like, this was just a masterpiece of a match, man. The physicality, the grit. This is the Kenny Omega that so many people loved and liked about him when he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling with the Bullet Club before AEW. And man, this was just, honestly, this felt like a callback. Like, he's like, when I'm back in New Japan, let me give you some stuff of how you guys remember me in New Japan. And man, this was a fantastic match, man. I gotta say, in all my years of wrestling, this type of match, the matches that come to mind similar to this, Steamboat Savage from WrestleMania 3. Could say, not to the gritty part, but more the athleticism. Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty. You could also say one match that's under the radar that was a freaking blast to watch was the Rob Van Dam Jerry Lynn feud of 2000. Like, those feuds reminded me, when I watched this match, that's what it reminded me of those feuds. And it was just like, man, this is so good. And man, the physicality that Ospreay and Omega just gave to one another, man. Like, they beat the hell out of each other. And I was just like, man, this is a lot. This is a lot to take in. But One Wing Angel, Omega is the new IWGP United States Champion. So that is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting if he brings that title to Dynamite on Wednesday, if he makes it, or if he's going to show up on Friday for Rampage and Battle of the Belts. I don't know. We'll see. But Kenny Omega is the new IWGP United States Champion. Then the main event, Okada, Jay White. Going into this, kind of got the feeling that Jay White was going to drop the title. And for me, I'm like, man, I wonder if we're going to get a new Bullet Club leader, or this is the beginning of the end for Bullet Club. Like, is this the moment when Bullet Club disbands? So I was like, this is interesting. So started off with a 2-sweet chop that Jay White executed. This was another match. It wasn't to the extent of Kenny Omega and Ospreay as far as athleticism, as far as the counters. The counters in this match and the reversals and stuff like that were more technical and like very gritty. Like it was a counter to like a clothesline or a knee or a forearm strike. Like it was just really into it. But man, towards the end of this match, Okada, he countered into a Rainmaker kick out. Then there was just that last brush of forearm strikes and exchanges. Then you had just back to back counters between Okada and Jay White, which led to Okada doing a Jay White's own finishing move, the Switchblade, to him. Then you had Rainmaker. Well, Okada hit the Rainmaker. 1, 2, 3. He wins. He is the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Afterwards, Jay White, he crawls to him, lifts himself on him. Kind of like, it was like kind of a way that he was hugging him, but not hugging him. Then he rolls out the ring. Towards the end, you got Shingo Takagi. He comes out. He congratulates Okada. Of course, gives mention to Antonio Inoki. And he challenges Okada. So we're going to get Okada versus Shingo Takagi. That should be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. But overall, man, this pay-per-view, man, this was a fun pay-per-view. It was long. It was tiring. And for those of you watching this review, thank you guys for bearing with me. I am recording this right after watching 5 hours of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom. So if you notice anything, just offer anything, it's because I am tired, but I'm doing this review for you guys because I know many of you probably didn't stay up and watch this. So I'm giving you guys my first account of how this is. So thank you guys who are going to watch this review. I really appreciate it. But man, Kenny Omega coming back as the IWGP United States Champion, FTR, having no belts, and Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, debuting at New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom. Like, this is going to be interesting. Like, this is an interesting fallout from here, and it's more on the AEW side of, hey, is Sasha Banks, man, I got to stop. Mercedes Moné, is Mercedes Moné going to be Saraya's partner? That's what, right now, that's what we're thinking after this Wrestle Kingdom, because it's like, the only thing that's stopping her is time. That's it. And that obligations to New Japan, or if she's, signed to New Japan. But it does get a feeling like Jon Moxley in 2019, where he did New Japan, but it was like, no, he's an AEW guy. So we just got to see how that plays out. Kenny Omega, he did have like a freaking black eye, so he's probably going to have a black eye if he shows up Dynamite tonight or on Rampage and Battle of the Belts. I don't know. We'll see. But man, this was a fun pay-per-view, and man, Mercedes Moné, she's here. So we got a lot of matches she's going to get through, and this is going to be fun. And this was a fun pay-per-view overall. So I'm enjoying it. But thank you guys so much. This is my review for Wrestle Kingdom 17, January 4th. Thank God there was no Finger Poke of Doom, which was back on January 4th, 1999. Hopefully it's none of that on AW Dynamite. But with that, thank you guys so much. Comment below what you guys thought of Wrestle Kingdom 17. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification so that way you're notified when the House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. With that, I'm out.